What's up, FNaF fans? Today we're diving into Steelworld's latest disaster, Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. And let me tell you, this game is everything wrong with modern FNAF wrapped up in a pretty bow that can't hide the mess underneath. If you've been following the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise like I have, you know we've been on a wild ride since Steelworld took over with Scott Cawthon. Today, I'm telling you why Secret of the Mimic might just be the final nail in the coffin for what made FNAF great in the first place. And we're talking about technical disasters, lore contradictions, and a complete abandonment of horror that literally built this franchise. Stick around because I think this is going to be a rough one. So let's just start with the elephant in the room, I guess. This game is broken, and I mean broken. We're talking about constant clipping issues where you'll see stationary objects and animatronics glitching through walls before they even start moving. The game crashes on high-end systems despite it claiming it only needs entry-level specs to run. And here's the real kicker that shows how rushed this was. There are rarely stock photos with Shutterstock watermarks still visible. You'd find cobwebs with the Shutterstock logos just sitting there like nobody bothered to check their own game. This is the kind of stuff you see from maybe like a cheap Unity asset flip and not a major FNAF release. Steelworld has a history of this kind of technical incompetence. I mean, remember security breaches launch? It had over 100 bugs that needed fixing in a single patch. They're clearly taking on projects with scopes way beyond their capabilities due to them maybe being like a VR focused studio. And here's what really gets me, this isn't even a horror game anymore. Remember when people complained that FNAF 3 wasn't scary? At least the game had genuine tension from night one with like Phone Dude's first call. Secret of the Mimic gave me maybe 2 minutes of engagement and exactly one jump scare that actually worked. This feels more like a puzzle game with the occasional jump scare thrown in as an afterthought. The atmosphere that made FNAF games terrifying is completely gone. Instead of the claustrophobic dread we used to love, we get tedious gameplay with no real sense of danger. Now let's talk about how this game completely destroys established FNAF lore. The timeline alone is a mess that shows Steelworld either doesn't understand or doesn't care about the franchise's foundation. The game takes place in the late 70s based on an order forms from the 1977. We hear Edwin complain about Fazbear Entertainment moving away from the Springlock suits. But wait, FNAF 4 clearly shows Springlock suits being used in 1983, 6 years later. How does that make sense if they were already being phased out in 77? The Springlock timeline has always been complex, but this creates a massive contradiction that throws the entire early timeline into the question. If Fazbear had made an official announcement to stop using the Springlock suits, why were Fredbear and Spring Bonnie suits still operational years later? But the concept of the Mimic as a new villain isn't bad. The idea of an AI that learns through mimicry and becomes dangerous has potential, but the execution here is terrible. We're supposed to believe that this thing was created in the 70s, then disappeared for 50 years, and then suddenly becomes a main threat without any hints in the original game. That's not how you build compelling lore, that's how you retcon everything fans have spent over a decade theorizing about. The books establish the Mimic's backstory with Edwin and his son, David, but by making these main canon, Steelworld is forcing book knowledge onto game-only fans. This goes against Scott's original vision where the books provide us hints, not required reading. And here's what really bothers me. This game makes William look incompetent. For years we're supposed to believe William was a robotics genius who partnered with Henry, and now we're supposed to accept that he was so jealous of Edwin's work that he had to steal everything because he couldn't innovate himself. This completely undermines William's character as the brilliant but twisted mind behind the original animatronics, makes both him and Henry look like frauds who couldn't create anything worthwhile on their own. The core issue here is that Steelworld is an art-focused VR studio and they're trying to handle this massive non-VR project. Their CEO Andrew admits that they come from a very art-centric place and their strength was originally in visual arts, not game design. This shows in almost every aspect of the Secret of the Mimic. It looks decent on the surface, but the gameplay, technical execution, and story integration are all severely lacking. They're clearly overwhelmed by the scope of what they're trying to accomplish. The pattern is inconsistent across FNAF work. Security Breach was a technical disaster that needed months of patches, and now Secret of the Mimic is following the same path of ambitious concepts with poor execution. Now here's where I'm going to contradict myself a little bit, because I had to be honest with you. Despite everything I just said, there are things about this game that work. The mechanics are actually pretty solid when they function properly. The character designs are generally well crafted, and there are moments where you can see the potential of what this could have been. The Edwin family story taking on its own is actually compelling. It's a tragic tale of loss and the dangerous consequences of trying to replace what we've lost. But it shouldn't be replacing the Advent family story that still needs a resolution. The fundamental issue isn't that the Secret of Mimic is buggy, or that it contradicts every existing lore. The problem is that Steel Wool is trying to create new stories before finishing the old ones Scott started. We still don't have proper closure for the Advent family. We don't understand William's true motivations, the family dynamics that drove him to murder, or how the original story actually ends. Instead, we're getting new characters like Edwin and new timeline elements like MXES that just can complicate everything further. Look, man, I want FNaF to succeed. This franchise means a lot to many of us, and we've invested years in understanding its mysteries. But Steel Wool needs to hear from the community that this isn't working. If you agree that the franchise needs to focus on completely existing stories before creating new ones, let me know in the comments. If you played Secret of the Mimic, share your thoughts on whether you think the technical issues and lore problems outweigh some of the game's more positive elements. Bottom line is, Secret of the Mimic might be Steel Wool's best technical achievement, but it's also proof that they're not ready to handle the FNaF franchise legacy. Until they can finish what Scott started and fix their technical competency issues, we're just going to keep getting beautifully broken games that disappoint long-term fans. What do you think? Are you willing to accept this direction for FNaF, or should Steel Wool go back to the drawing board? Let me know, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It helps the algorithm and boosts this video a lot. And stay tuned for more honest gaming takes.